Hey everyone, welcome to the e-commerce playbook podcast. On this week's pod, I asked Taylor 6 questions about surviving difficult times as an e-commerce business. Now, I'm sure I don't have to remind anyone listening that the broader e-commerce and economic environment is a challenge for everyone, and I think Taylor's advice here couldn't come at a better time. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. This episode of the e-commerce playbook is brought to you by Omnisend. If you're serious about growing your brand through email and SMS marketing, Omnisend has your back. It combines powerful automation, smart segmentation, and real-time performance insights, all in a platform that's intuitive and built specifically for e-commerce. With pre-built workflows, dynamic sign-up forms, and full multi-channel capabilities, Omnisend helps brands scale without unnecessary complexity. Join over 125,000 e-commerce marketers who rely on Omnisend every day. Head to omnisend.com/CTC and start on the free plan today. That's omnisend.com/CTC. Question number 1. What role should marketing play when a brand is in survival mode?
When you're in survival mode, there's a set of actions that you can take that are counterintuitive to what it means to survive. Initially, the impulse is going to be to cut, to pull everything back. But the key is, how can you maintain the growth engine that is actually the way out? So I want you to imagine there's a hole that you're in, right? And you are sinking in this hole, and you want to try to get as light as you can to not sink fast, right? And that may slow down the sinking. But if you don't find a way up and out of the hole, all you've done is prolong your inevitable death. And so the marketing engine you have to see is your way out of the hole. And so your job when you're cutting is to actually find every ancillary you can cost, or every ancillary cost that you can cut before you cut the marketing. Now, you want to make sure that marketing is not wasteful. I'm not saying to just be wasteful here, but it is to acknowledge that that is the engine. That is the way forward. And so you have to be really protective of those dollars. Get as lean as you can. Try to maintain the motor.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, let's go to question number 2. This is interesting. This connects directly to what we were just talking about. But question 2. How do you justify brand building investment when every dollar of media spend is under scrutiny for immediate ROI?
Well, I think the question is, why is it under scrutiny for immediate ROI? So the metaphor I use a lot here is personal investing, okay? If you think about your own way that you manage your money, if you are at risk of not being able to pay this month's mortgage, you don't go seek out long-term investment, okay? And I recognize that some brands are in that situation. They've got to make rent this month. In those moments, long-term brand building with a latent payback period is not the solution. This is that survival mode where I need to be focused on driving dollars today in order to survive. But the second you move beyond that and you've actually started to build up a little savings, now you begin to ask yourself, what kinds of actions can I take with that savings, with that excess cash that are going to yield better long-term results? Now you start looking at buying that condo that cash flows, or you start looking at maybe a seed investment into Corey's new startup, whatever it might be. The point is, you do that out of a position of excess when you're building for the future, not when you're in survival mode. So the question you have to ask yourself is, where am I? Do I need to make the rent this month? My marketing action should support that initiative. But if I've got that covered and I'm starting to build up a little bit of profit, then there's an opportunity to take some of that excess and invest it in longer term brand building actions.
Okay, question number 3. When you're forced to improve CAC efficiency, what's the difference between healthy optimization and cutting muscle instead of fat?
I don't know that I get the metaphor entirely of muscle and fat here, but I think efficiency gains, we have to acknowledge usually there's some relationship between volume and efficiency. Now, to break out of that sort of local maximum, where if you think about your present ads and your present optimization on your present offer, there's for that set of ad concepts, there is a relationship between CAC and volume. And right now, maybe you're getting the signal that that set of opportunities is only producing less, or is producing less volume at the efficiency target than you need. And you want to try and break out of that band of performance. Well, the way to do that is to go back to the creative and design new offers, new angles, new ways to communicate your message that have a chance to outperform other things. Now, that is challenging. And we talk a lot about how that iterative hamster wheel of just trying to make a better ad is very difficult. So in some cases, this may be that the product has actually reached a ceiling in its capacity to generate the efficiency that you need. And this could be about new product design. Maybe it's about taking a bigger swing at a marketing moment. It's finding your D-Day shoe. It's finding your next model breaking moment that's going to allow you to expand beyond where you're at. But I would say how far you are away from your expectation should be related to how big the swing needs to be. If you're 5% away from where you need to be, then okay, we can think about smaller changes to achieve that result. But if you're 50% away, we need to take a step back and reconsider a bigger action to drive substantially different results.
Okay. Question number 4. Do you think this uncertainty is pushing brands to adopt new business models, or are most changes just short-term tactics?
I think it's a fundamental. So I saw some results from Final Loop that I was actually like afraid to share because they were so dramatic. In the month of May, year over year, brands like tripled their profitability in Final Loop's data set. And it's because the COGS had not yet hit on the P&L, right? So with tariffs, a lot of it's a future concern, right? So the tariff, you're going to pay on the next batch of inventory. But you know what everybody did? They slashed their OpEx. I saw OpEx is down like 60%. Okay. They all started price testing. So they actually drove their gross margin up and they cut marketing spend in the short term. So what happened was that led to a really profitable April and May. Now that's not sustainable. And in some ways this goes back to the marketing question about how much they spent, or whether they've killed their growth engine or not. But I do think that this idea that they're going to discover, much like CTC did when we went through this, that they were probably bloated on the OpEx side and that OpEx is not going to come back. And it's going to begin to reconfigure the business model to a much leaner, higher revenue per employee headcount that is going to be a part of e-commerce's future, I believe.
Still juggling multiple tools for email, SMS, and push marketing? Omnisend brings them all together in one powerful platform built for e-commerce. You can launch pre-built automation workflows, build audience segments based on shopping behavior, and even gamify your sign-up forms without spending weeks learning the tool. It just works, and it's built to scale with you. Every account starts on a free plan, and unlike other platforms, Omnisend gives you 24/7 human support no matter your tier. Check it out at omnisend.com/CTC or click the link in the description. Okay, so let's question 5 here. What's one mistake you see brands make again and again in times of market stress?
Yeah. When these moments happen, there's a temptation to label them as anomalies. And so you get through them, but you, to the point of the last question, just revert back to your previous behavior. And what I would say is if we look back at the last 3 years, I have found myself using the word anomaly or black swan event multiple times. And anytime that happens, we need to start to ask ourselves, is this actually really that rare? iOS 14, COVID, tariffs, supply chain, massive bogs, like AppLovin showing up out of nowhere. Maybe our industry is actually one that is very dynamic and subject to constant changes. And if that's the case, what kind of business would we build if instead of calling those things abnormal, we actually started to call them normal? What if we said we should expect that over the next 12 months, something really dynamic with a significant change to the business model is going to occur? What would we do then? Well, I think what we would do is we'd focus more on building anti-fragile businesses, the kind that thrive in those moments. And we would think about more redundancy in the supply chain. We would think about trying to make sure our organic demand was as good as our paid demand. We would start to think about how we could be really lean on the OpEx side to survive those moments. Like it would just change how we thought about building the businesses instead of assuming that the future was going to be really smooth and without any big bumps or changes.
Okay, finally, this is question number 6. What advice would you give to a founder who feels completely stuck right now?
This is going to maybe not sound great, but you don't have to do the business. This is like one of my proudest moments is there was a woman that was in admission that she and I used to trade Marco Polos, which is like one of my favorite apps, just video messaging. And the end result was like they left e-commerce and they've done something much better and they're way happier and thriving. There are some businesses that maybe it doesn't work, and that's okay. It's okay. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm saying quit. Okay. Because maybe that's not the case. Maybe you do have a great underlying business, but you can give a lot of your life away to a vehicle that actually the potential of it was never that great. And so I think just making sure that do I have a reason to believe that there's some leverage or underlying attribute in this business that would allow me to win at the level that I want for my life? And to gut check that with somebody and to get an honest perspective. So that's what I would say, is that it's okay to do something else. I know that that may not be the advice everybody's looking for, but I really believe that.
All right, that wraps it up. Thanks again for listening. And as always, if you want to navigate these difficult waters in partnership with us, just head to commonthreadco.com and hit that Hire Us button. We would love to talk. Until next time.